You filled your home with plants, hoping they'd heal you, but some of them were silently making you sick. The air is still, the room is clean, the plants are green, but somehow the space still feels heavy. You open the windows, you rearrange the furniture, you even light a candle. But that dense feeling, it lingers. You might think it's just the weather, or maybe I'm just tired. But what if? Oh, it's not about you. What if it's the plants? Not the absence of them, but the way they've quietly disrupted the energy you're trying to restore? In Feng Shui, plants are living extensions of energy, but only when they're healthy, aligned, and truly alive. Otherwise, they don't just stop helping, they start draining. Feng Shui doesn't begin with adding more. Sometimes, it starts with removing the very thing you thought was healing you. Not all growth is rooted in care. Some things grow because no one noticed they shouldn't. They start small, a leaf reaching for light, a vine curling along the wall, and you let it. Because it looked alive. Because green meant good. But what grows without question soon forgets its place. It begins to take the window, blur the corners, drown the shape of the room in something that feels consuming. And one day, you step back and realize you haven't exhaled fully in weeks. In Feng Shui, growth is not just about height or leaves. It's about rhythm. A plant that grows in harmony, it mirrors your breath. It expands gently, it pauses, it listens to the light, the same way your nervous system listens to silence. But when it grows without pause, without form, it no longer lives with you. It begins to speak over the room. It draws your eyes, not because it's beautiful, but because it's loud. You start avoiding that corner. You feel pulled to tidy things that weren't messy. You move slower. You sleep less deeply. Because something around you is expanding, while you're trying to hold yourself together. In Feng Shui, this is a shift in vibration. From support to overwhelm, from harmony to invasion, from presence to pressure. And the worst part, it looks like life, but it feels like suffocation. Because the space meant to hold you is now held by something else. It's like that one habit you picked up during a hard season. It helped at first. It made things easier. It gave shape to the empty. So you kept it. Even after the season passed. Even after you grew. And slowly, it stopped being a habit and started becoming a wall. It wrapped around your mornings, took over your rituals. It filled your time before you had a chance to decide how you actually wanted to live. One day you look around and realize there's no space left that wasn't shaped by that one thing. If you never meant to grow this far, your nervous system wasn't designed to filter out everything at once. It's constantly scanning for light, for threat, for softness, for edges. So when a plant takes over a room, when it spills across corners, blocks windows, interrupts the geometry of space, your body doesn't just see green, it sees noise, subtle noise, beautiful noise, but still something it must manage. Researchers call this visual load the cumulative weight of too many signals asking for attention. And the cost? It's not panic, it's not obvious. It's the low hum of always needing to adjust. It's why you sigh more often than you speak, why you avoid that corner without knowing why. Because your body has been negotiating with the plants on your behalf, and now it's tired. You don't have to let everything grow. Not every leaf needs to reach. Not every vine needs a wall. Some things are healthier when they're held, when they're pruned, when they're reminded, oh, that expansion, it is not the only form of life. Sometimes peace, it is not in the growth, but in the grace of knowing when to stop. And just because something looks alive doesn't mean it's helping you live. Which brings us to the next kind of silence, the kind that settles in your space when something isn't quite dead, but has stopped thriving a long time ago. It's still upright, still shaped like life, but there's no pulse in the leaves, no stretch toward the light, just stillness, the kind that settles when a thing has stopped trying but hasn't been let go. You keep walking past it, telling yourself, maybe tomorrow, but it hasn't asked for water in days, and your fingers stopped checking the soil. Because somewhere deep down, you've already accepted its leaving. You just haven't said it out loud. So it stays, like a breath held too long, not quite gone, but no longer becoming, just waiting for someone to name the ending. In Feng Shui, energy doesn't vanish. It lingers, especially when something is in between, not blooming, not decaying, just paused. And in that pause, the qi doesn't flow forward. It circles, it waits, it grows dense. It's like air that's forgotten how to move. A plant that has stopped thriving doesn't just sit there. It pulls. It draws energy inward, not to grow, but to hold in what was meant to move. And slowly, you begin to sync with its rhythm. You take longer to make decisions. You pause before entering that room. You lose momentum, not from exhaustion, but from subtle, steady absorption. Because you're living near something that's no longer alive, but hasn't let go, and now, neither have you. It's like the version of yourself you kept alive, just to not disappoint anyone. You dressed it, spoke through it, let it smile when you were tired. And after a while, it stopped asking to evolve. It just learned how to survive. No hunger, no wonder, just presence, enough to not raise concern. And because it wasn't broken, you never tried to heal it. You just let it sit, be like an old plant in the corner, too familiar to remove, too faded to revive. So you work around it, decorate beside it, tell yourself, maybe one day I'll feel ready. But deep down, you know, it already said goodbye. You're just the one, still holding on. Your body knows. When something is no longer alive, even when your mind still calls it familiar, a dying plant, with its sagging posture, its brittle edges, is more than visual clutter. It's a message your nervous system receives, over and over. This space is not renewing itself. Environmental studies show prolonged exposure to decay, even slow, subtle decay, triggers low-grade stress responses in the brain. You don't call it anxiety. You just breathe shallower, get distracted faster, forget why you walked into the room, because something around you has stopped becoming, and your system has started to match it. Not all stagnation feels dramatic. Sometimes it feels like staying still, because moving would mean noticing how long you've been fading too. You don't have to hold on, just because it still holds its shape. Not everything that stands is meant to stay. Some things linger, not because they serve you, but because you've forgotten how to say goodbye gently. A fading plant does not need saving. It needs witnessing, and then it needs releasing. Because sometimes healing doesn't ask you to fix. It asks you to let go of what quietly stopped moving forward, long before you did. And when you do, you begin to see something else, that even the plants still alive can lose their power when they're placed where no energy was meant to live. It's healthy, it's green, but it doesn't feel right. It leans near the hallway where light never lands. It stands at the center of a room no one rests in, and every time you walk past, you flinch just a little, without knowing why. Not because it's broken, but because it's being placed where energy doesn't know what to do with it. In Feng Shui, plants are amplifiers. They absorb, radiate, and mirror the energy of the space they occupy. But when placed in corners that are stagnant, or in paths where qi is meant to move freely, they become accidental blockages. The qi slows. The current breaks. What was meant to nourish now disrupts. It's not the plant's fault. It's the placement. And sometimes the stillness you feel in that room isn't peace. It's friction without a name. It's like a truth you spoke at the wrong moment, not because it was untrue, but because the room wasn't ready. So it sat there, heavy, suspended, awkward in the silence. Or maybe it's like showing up as your full self in a space that only welcomes pieces. You're not the mistake. but you carry the discomfort, calms, of not belonging. That's what misplaced energy feels like. Even when it's beautiful, even when it means well, your nervous system is always mapping space. Even when you think you're just walking through a room, your brain is scanning for flow, for obstruction, for where it's safe to release tension. A plant in a transition zone, like a hallway or narrow path, doesn't just take up space. It creates micro-friction, small hesitations, subtle detours, unnoticed tension. Over time, your body reads that space as effort. And the worst part? You start calling it normal. Until one day, you move the plant, and something inside you exhales. For the first time in weeks. Sometimes, healing is not about removing. It's about relocating what still has life to where life is ready to meet it. A plant out of place, is not a problem. It's a message, a soft reminder that alignment isn't just about intention, but position, and all it takes to restore the flow is a single shift in where energy is allowed to breathe again, because the most beautiful things can still cause stagnation when they're asked to bloom where nothing ever moves. It doesn't take up much space. It doesn't crawl. It doesn't fade. It just stands there, quiet, pointed, like it knows. It could hurt you if you got too close. So you don't. You walk wider. You turn your shoulder. You flinch in small ways. You've forgotten how to name. Not because it's dangerous, but because your body remembers what your mind keeps dismissing. In Feng Shui, each shape is not just an aesthetic, it's an intention. And sharp shapes carry cutting energy. Plants with spikes, hard tips, or pointed leaves emit what we call sha qi, penetrating, aggressive energy that disturbs the flow around it, especially in spaces meant for softness, like bedrooms, meditation zones, or near entrances. These forms send micro-signals of alertness to the nervous system. They don't scream, they just whisper, stay ready, don't rest, don't soften, and eventually you don't. It's like the person who never raised their voice, but always made you shrink. They didn't say much, but they looked at you in a way that made your body fold in. So you spoke more carefully. You sat differently. You adjusted yourself, just a little, so their sharpness wouldn't find you. And maybe you still do that now. Not with them, but with everything that reminds your body how to brace before it's even touched. The human body is built to detect threat long before the mind gives it a name. Sharp shapes, even beautiful ones, activate what scientists call the orienting response. Your eyes lock, your posture shifts, your breath holds, just slightly. You're not in danger, but your body doesn't trust that yet. In healing design, Spikes, points, and jagged lines are known to trigger low-level stress states. The body enters subtle alert. You don't run. You just don't rest. Especially when those shapes live in spaces meant for safety, like your bedroom, your entryway, or the corner you go to breathe. Over time, that constant edge around you becomes an edge within you, and what was meant to decorate becomes something your nervous system quietly negotiates every single day. You don't have to get rid of it. Just notice how much softer you breathe. When you're not standing next to it, not everything sharp is violent. Some things harm simply by reminding your body that it must stay ready. But peace doesn't grow where readiness never ends. So maybe it's not about the plant. Maybe it's about the part of you that's been bracing quietly for far too long. And once you notice that, you begin to ask, what else in this room looks like it's helping me, but doesn't breathe at all? It stays green, no matter the season, no matter the light, no matter if you're home or not. It doesn't ask for water, doesn't lean toward the sun. It just exists, untouched, unchanging, and for a while, that feels safe, because nothing dies. Nothing fades. Nothing asks anything of you. But over time, you forget what it's like to be needed by something real. And that, too, is how life begins to feel present, but no longer alive. In Feng Shui, real plants don't just take up space. They take part in it. They breathe with your home. They shift when you shift. They pull energy from the air and give some back. But a fake plant? It doesn't belong to the cycle. It doesn't inhale. It doesn't lean. It doesn't know you're there. It creates the illusion of life without the rhythm that makes life real. And the more you surround yourself with that stillness, the more your space forgets how to respond to you. Your energy no longer returns to you. It just dissolves into things that never asked for it in the first place. It's like talking to someone who remembers your birthday, but never asks how your heart is. The conversation flows. The laughs are timed. The check-ins come right on schedule. But when you hang up, there's a silence that doesn't feel restful. Not because they were unkind, but because you were never really seen. You were witnessed, but not felt. And somehow, that became normal, until one day, someone looks at you, and something inside you moves toward the light again. Your nervous system doesn't respond to appearances. It responds to life. Real plants release micro-signals. Slight movements, subtle shifts in moisture, invisible compounds that whisper, "I'm here with you," and your body relaxes. not because it understands, but because it feels connected. Fake plants don't just miss those signals. They replace them with silence. Not a peaceful silence, but a kind that slowly teaches your body not to expect anything real. Your brain starts to register presence without participation, color without breath, company without communion. And over time, the space doesn't feel wrong. It just stops feeling anything at all. You don't need to fill your home with things that look alive. You deserve what breathes back, what leans when you lean, what fades with the seasons, what reminds you that growth and change are part of peace, not a threat to it. Stillness can be healing, but not when it's hollow. So maybe it's time to return your space to the things that truly live, not just for the way they look, but for the way they love you back. Because when everything around you breathes again, something inside you finally will too. These 5 plant mistakes weren't loud. They didn't shout. They stood quietly, in corners, in habits, in good intentions. And that's exactly why they drained you. But now that you've seen them, you can begin to shift the energy with your eyes, with your hands, with your breath. Not to make your home perfect, but to make it a place that breathes with you again. Sometimes the most draining things are the ones that pretend to help. The plant that overgrows, the leaf that never lives, the stillness that never breathes. And when you live in a space surrounded by what only looks alive, you begin to feel like presence is enough, even when there's no pulse beneath it. But healing your home isn't about adding more. It's about noticing what no longer meets you and choosing to replace the illusion of peace with something that can grow with you. Tap like if your home has ever felt full but lifeless. Subscribe if you're ready to build a space that breathes with you. Share this video with someone who's still calling stillness calm, even when it quietly hurts. Because change doesn't start with rearranging everything. It starts with finally recognizing what was never truly alive to begin with. Your space speaks, wisdom listens.